I welcome you all to my YouTube channel. I am Six Path Weeb. On this channel, we dive into creative anime fanfictions, exploring alternate universes, unexpected crossovers, and stories that fans have always imagined but never seen on screen. Today's fanfic topic is Deku meets Naruko, a crossover where the world of heroes collides with the world of shinobi. What happens when Izuku Midoriya, the aspiring hero, meets Naruko, the spirited ninja? Two different worlds, two powerful destinies, and one unforgettable encounter. Disclaimer. The content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without wasting any more time, let's start, guys. The late afternoon sky above the quiet shrine glowed with gentle shades of gold and red. The air felt peaceful, and the soft rustle of leaves made the place seem even calmer than usual. Izuku sat across from his mentor, watching carefully as the elderly sage raised her hand. Naruko Uzumaki had bright, kind eyes despite her many wrinkles, and her long white hair was tied into two loose tails that rested on her shoulders. Even though she looked old, there was something lively about her, like a spark that never faded. "Give me your fist, Izuku," she said warmly. Izuku blinked in surprise. "A fist bump?" he asked. Naruko smiled. "Yes. Trust me." Izuku hesitated for only a moment before raising his hand. Their knuckles met with a soft tap. At once, a warm glow spread between them. It was not painful. Instead, it felt like standing in gentle sunlight after a cool morning. The warmth moved through Izuku's arms, across his chest, and all the way to his fingertips. His eyes widened. "What is this?" he whispered. "Chakra," Naruko replied softly. "The energy that lives inside every living thing." The light shimmered gently around them. Leaves stirred along the shrine steps as if the wind itself had paused to watch. Izuku suddenly felt very sleepy, as if his body was adjusting to something new and wonderful. "Don't worry," Naruko said kindly. "Your body is simply learning something it has never felt before." Izuku's vision slowly faded to white as he drifted into a peaceful sleep. When Izuku awoke later, the sky had turned a soft purple evening color. The shrine lanterns had been lit, and their warm glow flickered gently in the breeze. Naruko sat beside him in quiet meditation. "Sensei?" Izuku murmured. Her eyes opened, and she smiled. "Welcome back." Izuku sat up slowly. His body felt different. Not heavy or tired, but lighter somehow. As if something inside him had awakened. "What happened?" he asked. Naruko folded her hands together calmly. "I shared a small part of my knowledge with you," she explained. "Not power that belongs only to me, but a path you can walk yourself." Izuku looked down at his hands. "Does that mean?" "Yes," Naruko said gently. "You can learn to use chakra." Izuku's eyes widened with amazement. "But I don't have a quirk." Naruko chuckled softly. "You don't need one." She stood slowly and gestured toward the open courtyard of the shrine. "In my world, anyone with patience, kindness, and determination could learn to use chakra. It was never meant to belong only to the strongest." Izuku carefully stood up as well. He could still feel that warm energy quietly flowing inside him. "It feels like a tiny river," he said thoughtfully. Naruko nodded with approval. "That is a good way to describe it." She walked down the shrine steps and motioned for him to follow. "The first lesson," she said, "is listening." "Listening?" "To yourself. To the world around you. Chakra is strongest when you move in harmony with life, not against it." Izuku closed his eyes and took a slow breath. For the first time, he noticed things he had never felt before: the gentle wind brushing past his cheeks, the calm strength of the earth beneath his feet, the steady rhythm of his own heartbeat. A small swirl of air lifted a few leaves near his shoes. Izuku gasped and opened his eyes. "Did I do that?" Naruko smiled proudly. "You did." Izuku's heart filled with excitement. "I can learn this?" "With practice," Naruko said. "And patience." She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Remember, Izuku. Being a hero is not about having the greatest power. It is about protecting others, helping them smile, and never giving up on doing what is right." Izuku nodded firmly. "I understand, sensei." At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed up the shrine path. "Izuku." Inko Midoriya rushed through the gate, clearly worried. When she saw her son standing safely beside Naruko, she let out a long sigh of relief. "Oh, thank goodness." Izuku ran to her and gave her a hug. "I'm okay, Mom." Inko looked between him and Naruko. "What happened?" Naruko gave a gentle bow. "Your son has begun learning something very special," she said. "A way to grow stronger while staying kind." Inko studied her son's bright, hopeful face. The determination in his eyes was clearer than ever. "Well," she said softly, wiping away a tear of relief, "if Izuku believes in it, then I will too." Naruko laughed warmly. "That is the spirit." The lanterns flickered peacefully as evening settled over the shrine. And for the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya felt that his dream of becoming a hero might truly be possible, not because of a quirk, but because of the courage growing inside his heart. Izuku's eyes slowly opened in the quiet darkness. For a moment he simply listened to the soft sounds of the house, the gentle hum of the computer on his desk and the faint rustle of curtains by the window. As his vision adjusted, familiar shapes appeared. His posters of All Might watched over the room with their bright smiles. He was home. But something felt unusual. A warm, sparkling feeling moved gently through his body, like tiny lights drifting from the tips of his fingers all the way down to his toes. It wasn't painful. It was more like a strange, restless energy, as if his body had suddenly remembered how to wake up all at once. Izuku pushed the blanket aside and carefully climbed out of bed. When his feet touched the floor, he made a small thump. "Izu." His mother's voice came from nearby. Inko sat up from the futon beside his bed and hurried over, her eyes wide with worry. She wrapped him in a tight hug. "Izu, are you all right? I was so worried." "Kachan. I'm okay," Izuku said softly, patting her shoulder. His head still felt a little fuzzy, like he had just woken from a very long dream. "What happened?" "The last thing I remember. I was talking with Naruko-sensei, and then everything went blank." Inko gently leaned back, still holding his shoulders as she looked at him closely. "Naruko-san called me," she explained. "She said you needed to come home and rest. You've been asleep for almost half a day." Izuku blinked in surprise. "That long?" His mother nodded, her expression full of concern. "How do you feel?" "She said she helped you with something important." Izuku looked down at his hands. When he slowly made a fist, he noticed how steady and strong his fingers felt, as if new energy had settled inside them. "I feel different," he said thoughtfully. Then his eyes suddenly lit up. "My notebook." He quickly stepped past his mother and switched on the room light. After a moment of searching through his backpack, he pulled out his familiar hero notebook. The pages were filled with careful writing and little notes scribbled in the margins. "Here it is," he said excitedly, flipping to the right page. Inko sat beside him on the bed as he began reading. "These are the notes I wrote when Naruko-sensei started explaining things about quirks," Izuku said. He cleared his throat and read aloud. "Long ago, when Naruko-sensei first arrived in this world, she discovered a special kind of natural energy that flows through everything. Over time, that energy slowly began to awaken unique abilities in people." Izuku's eyes shone with curiosity. "Isn't that amazing, Kachan? Scientists have never been completely sure where quirks came from." Inko listened quietly. She knew how passionate her son was whenever he talked about heroes or new discoveries. Even so, she still felt uneasy about everything that had happened. "Izu," she said gently, "you should be careful. Naruko-san might be asking you to take on something very big." Izuku continued reading the last lines of his notes. As he did, the missing pieces of his memory slowly returned. She also said that if the natural energy gathers in one place for too long, it could form into a powerful being, Izuku said. And that someone would need to guide that energy safely so it doesn't cause problems for people. His voice trembled slightly. "And she chose me to help." Tears gathered in his eyes, not from fear alone, but from the weight of such a big responsibility. "What if I can't do it?" Inko wrapped her arms around him again. "You don't have to do anything right now," she whispered. "You can take your time. You're still my Izu." For a moment, Izuku thought about her words. Forget about it? Pretend nothing had happened? But deep inside, something steady had already begun to grow. He had always dreamed of helping others, just like his favorite heroes. "I can't pretend I didn't hear her," he said quietly. "Naruko-sensei trusted me with this. I want to understand why." Inko looked at him, her expression filled with worry and pride at the same time. "I just don't want you to get hurt," she said softly. "I know," Izuku replied. After a moment, Inko stood and walked toward the door. I'll make breakfast, she said, pausing for a second before leaving the room. Izuku lay back on his bed and stared at the ceiling. His mind swirled with questions. Naruko-sensei had always seemed mysterious, but also kind. When she had given him that friendly fist bump earlier, he never expected anything extraordinary to happen. Now, however, it felt like a door had opened in front of him. Somewhere out there, Naruko-sensei was waiting with answers. Izuku sat up again and looked at his notebook with determination. I guess I'll have to ask her myself, he said quietly. Naruko winced at another faint echo of discomfort in her body. She was beginning to feel her age after using the last of her special Rikudo chakra. The loss of the 9 small fragments of the great-tailed spirits had also weakened her strength. Quite simply, any sudden shift in her chakra while she was in such a delicate state was risky, and the effort she had made the day before had pushed her far beyond her usual limits. She had slept very deeply the night before, and that morning she had spent almost all her time quietly meditating. Shinjutsu, the art of drawing gentle strength from nature, had always helped her. It worked like a multiplier, allowing her to stretch what little energy she had left. If she used it carefully and often, she believed she might remain well for another year. That would be long enough to see Izuku take the entrance exam for UA High. During that time, she hoped she could teach him enough to become a capable young ninja. After that, Izuku would continue learning on his own. Naruko had been trying to guide Izuku the same way her old mentor, Master Jiraiya, once tried to guide her. Jiraiya had always encouraged her to learn how to learn. It was a skill more valuable than any single technique. When Naruko had been young, she had not always listened as well as she should have. Izuku, however, seemed thoughtful and eager, so she was determined to help him grow in the best way she could. Still, there was one concern lingering in her mind. Inko had been quite upset with Naruko after recent events. Even so, Naruko trusted Izuku. She knew the boy would return, and when he did, he would have many questions. Naruko slowly opened her eyes. Her senses, trained over many years, reached outward. She could feel Izuku approaching from a few miles away, moving quickly. By bicycle, she murmured softly to herself with a small smile. This was a surprise. She had expected Inko to keep Izuku close to home for a little while. Either she had shown remarkable patience, or Izuku had managed to slip away quietly, which seemed unlikely. A few minutes later, the sound of bicycle brakes echoed gently near the shrine steps. Izuku arrived and stopped at the bottom, looking serious and thoughtful. His green eyes shone in the morning sunlight. Naruko-sensei, he said. His voice was calm but firm. We need to talk. Naruko rose to her feet. Her knees made a soft cracking sound as she stood, and she chuckled quietly to herself. Well, she said kindly, I suppose we do. She slid the wooden temple door open and gestured for him to enter. Come inside. I was just about to have some morning green tea. It should be ready. Inside the temple, the air was peaceful and warm. The room looked as though it had been used for quiet tea gatherings for many generations. Naruko poured steaming green tea into 2 simple cups while Izuku sat across from her at a low table. Both of them rested on soft cushions, and both understood this conversation would take some time. Naruko took a small sip of tea and placed her cup gently on the table. She looked at the young boy sitting across from her. Well then, Midoriya-chan, she said kindly, I imagine you have many questions. Please, ask anything you wish. Izuku opened his notebook and held a sharpened pencil ready. The world you came from, he said carefully. Please tell me about it. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. The first thing you should know, she began, is that my world was not so different from yours. Both worlds have faced difficult times in their histories. But instead of advanced technology, the people of my world relied on chakra and the skills of our warriors. She took another sip of tea before continuing. In our world, natural energy has always flowed through everything, people, animals, forests, rivers, and mountains. Because of this, unusual things were not uncommon. Some animals could speak, and some people could perform incredible feats that seemed almost magical. Izuku leaned forward, writing quickly in his notebook. I noticed something like that when you showed me the swirling energy technique, he said. It looked incredibly controlled. I've never seen a hero ability quite like it. Naruko smiled warmly. It's called the Rasengan, she explained. And you notice the control, that's very observant of you. She lifted her teacup again. In my world, people with special inherited abilities were actually quite rare. These abilities usually appeared within certain families that passed them down through generations. In your world, however, almost everyone has a unique ability. Quirks, as you call them, are very common here. She set the cup down gently. The power you and I use is called chakra. It isn't a quirk or a family trait. Chakra is created by combining the strength of the body and the focus of the mind. Because of that, it doesn't have just one form. If you can imagine something clearly and shape your energy carefully, you can create many different techniques. She gave a small nod toward him. The Rasengan is a perfect example. It's not an ability someone is born with. It's a skill someone learns. Izuku's pencil moved quickly across the page. Naruko paused briefly to clear her throat and sip her tea. Long ago, she continued softly, there was a remarkable woman in my world's early history. She discovered how to connect deeply with the natural energy of the world and blend it with her own spirit. With that knowledge, she gained abilities so extraordinary that people remembered her as a figure almost like a legend. Naruko smiled gently. And because of her discovery, the art of chakra was eventually shared with others. Over time, people learned how to use it in many different ways, to help, to build, to explore, and to protect the world around them. Izuku looked up from his notebook, his eyes shining with curiosity. There's so much to learn, he said quietly. Naruko chuckled softly. Yes, she replied warmly. And we will take it one step at a time. The old storyteller took a slow sip of her tea and looked thoughtfully at the sky above the trees. Long ago, she began, a powerful woman arrived in the world. At first, she truly wished to bring harmony to everyone. She believed that if she guided people carefully, peace would grow everywhere. But over time she became too controlling, trying to decide everything for everyone. Her heart grew heavy with worry, and her good intentions slowly turned into something strict and unfair. She paused, letting the quiet breeze pass through the clearing. Her two sons cared deeply for the world and for their mother. They knew that the balance of nature needed to be restored. So they worked together to place her spirit into a peaceful rest so that the world could move forward again. From the great power she once carried, the elder son, Hagoromo, created something wonderful. He shared a special energy called chakra with people everywhere. The old woman smiled gently. Hagoromo hoped that by sharing this energy, people would better understand one another. Chakra could connect thoughts and feelings, almost like a quiet conversation between hearts. He called this idea Ninshu. Izuku Midoriya listened carefully, holding his notebook in both hands. But, Naruko said with a small chuckle, even the wisest people do not always know exactly how things will turn out. Chakra was beautiful and helpful, but it was also difficult to learn. Only people who practiced carefully and studied it deeply could use it well. She lifted her teacup again. And when people discover something powerful, they sometimes forget that power should be used kindly. Some people began focusing only on how strong it made them feel, instead of how it could help others. Izuku looked thoughtful. I suppose, he said quietly, people can only try their best. Naruko's smile widened. Yes, she replied. That is a very wise thing to say. She poured herself another cup of tea and continued. Hagoromo later divided a great portion of chakra into 9 remarkable beings called the Bijou. They were not monsters at all, but intelligent and unique spirits of energy. Each had its own personality, some were playful, some were serious, and some were quite silly. Izuku blinked in surprise. They all live with you? He asked. Naruko nodded. They have stayed with me for a very long time. My wish has always been to keep their power safe so that it would never cause trouble for the world again. Izuku tightened his grip on his pencil, listening closely. But someday, Naruko continued calmly, their energy will return to nature and become part of the world again. When that happens, they will need someone kind and brave to guide them and help them remember who they truly are. Izuku looked up at her. And? You want that person to be me? Naruko shifted slightly on the rock where she sat. For a moment she seemed a little shy, which surprised Izuku. Yes, she said softly. I believe you have the heart for it. Izuku stared at his notebook. The title written on the front read. For the Future, Hero Analysis Number 11. His thoughts raced. Becoming a hero had always been his dream. Helping others, protecting smiles, doing the right thing even when things were difficult, that was what being a hero meant to him. Slowly, he closed the notebook. He wiped his forehead, took a deep breath, and looked up again with determination shining in his eyes. I want to learn from you, Naruko-sensei, he said. I'll do my best. Naruko studied him quietly. The boy had just accepted a very large responsibility, yet his smile was bright and sincere. She laughed softly to herself. This kid. Was I ever like that? A playful voice inside her mind answered. Not quite. You were enthusiastic. But also a little clueless. After their conversation, they shared a simple lunch together. When they finished, Naruko led Izuku to a small clearing surrounded by thin trees and patches of sunlight. She hopped onto a large rock and balanced her walking stick carefully on one finger. Now then, she said cheerfully, if we're going to train, the first thing you must learn is how to feel your chakra. Tell me, have you noticed anything different today, Midoriya-chan? Izuku looked at his right hand. I have, he said slowly. Since I woke up, it feels like there are warm sparks moving through my arms. Not painful, just glowing, like tiny embers. He flexed his fingers. The warm sensation shifted gently. And when I move, it changes. Naruko raised an eyebrow, impressed. Very good. For someone who has never felt chakra before, noticing it so clearly is wonderful. She hopped down from the rock and set her walking stick beside her. In my homeland, we use special movements called hand seals. These movements help guide chakra smoothly, like turning a key to open a door. She began demonstrating them slowly so Izuku could follow. Bird. Boar. Dog. Dragon. Ox. Tiger. Snake. Rat. Horse. Monkey. Hare. And ram. Her hands moved carefully through each shape. Each seal helps guide chakra in a slightly different way. When you combine them in certain patterns, you can perform helpful techniques. Izuku quickly wrote notes in his notebook. So you connect them like steps in a sequence? He asked. And if you move too slowly, the chakra flow might fade? Naruko laughed warmly. You're already thinking like a student of chakra, she said. Excellent. She handed him a small scroll. Study these tonight. Tomorrow we'll practice them together. Izuku held the scroll with both hands, excitement bubbling inside him. Training had finally begun. The afternoon sun shone warmly over the quiet training clearing. An old teacher sat calmly on a large stone while young Izuku practiced below. The breeze rustled the leaves, and the peaceful forest seemed to listen along. Kid. Now I know how Jiraiya-sensei must have felt when teaching my dad, the old teacher said with a soft laugh. She rubbed the back of her neck thoughtfully. Her bright, spiky hair moved gently in the wind as she watched Izuku concentrating on his hand signs. You're right about something important, Naruko continued kindly. For these seals to work, you can't take too long with them. Chakra has a short memory. If you don't guide it with a strong will, the shape of the technique will fall apart. Izuku blinked in surprise, listening carefully. Some techniques use more than 40 different hand seals, Naruko added. My own teacher could finish them in just a few seconds. That's the kind of speed you'll work toward someday. Izuku's eyes widened. 40 seals in seconds? His fingers twitched just thinking about it. He imagined trying to move that fast and almost laughed at himself. Naruko noticed his expression and smiled warmly. But don't worry, she said. Chakra helps your body grow more skilled with practice. Over time your hands will move faster and smoother than you ever thought possible. For now, focus on understanding what each seal means and how it feels. She paused, tapping her chin in thought. Then she reached into the folds of her robe. Actually, I think your quick mind could handle a little challenge. 3 scrolls appeared in her hand, and she tossed them gently down to Izuku. He caught them carefully and looked up in surprise. He had no idea where she had been keeping them. Naruko chuckled softly. Those are the first 3 jutsu I ever tried to learn, she explained. I say tried because it took me quite a while to get them right. She rubbed the back of her neck again, looking slightly embarrassed but amused by the memory. Don't rush yourself, she added. Just give them a try. Practicing the movements will help you understand the seals much better than simply reading about them. I've always believed the best way to learn is by doing. Izuku held the scrolls like precious treasures. Thank you, sensei, he said eagerly. I'll study them tonight and show you tomorrow. Naruko raised an eyebrow with a playful grin. Oh? Already making promises, huh? She looked out toward the distant hills, her eyes thoughtful for a moment. Well then, she said, if you manage to complete those techniques in one night, I'll teach you another useful one tomorrow. Izuku's face lit up with determination. Hi. Naruko waved her hand toward the path leading back through the trees. Off you go now. Head home and tell your mother I'm sorry for keeping you out so long. Izuku nodded and started toward the path, but just before he left the clearing, Naruko called out again. Izuku. He turned back. You're a good kid, she said gently. Helping an old teacher like me. Thank you. For a moment, Izuku looked at her silhouette against the bright sun. Her shoulders were slightly slouched, and the wind played with her spiky hair. Something about the moment felt strangely important, though he couldn't quite explain why. He rubbed his eyes, then smiled brightly. It's okay, sensei. I like helping people. With that, he hurried down the forest path toward the temple where his bicycle waited. If he stayed out much longer, his friends would surely wonder where he had gone. Naruko closed her eyes quietly and sensed the boy's cheerful energy as he traveled home. His excitement reminded her of her own younger days. So enthusiastic, she murmured softly to herself. He really reminds me of someone. A small, thoughtful smile appeared on her face as the wind rustled the trees around her. Well, she said with a light chuckle, standing up from the boulder, let's see what tomorrow brings. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps the community grow and keeps the content coming. Until the next one, stay curious, stay passionate, and keep walking the 6 paths. Thank you. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.